Hi folks, how are we all doing? I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and Urmston in the northwest of England. I hope you're finding the love and witnessing the blessings that are present in life in these difficult times. It's hard, my friends, but we're all in this one together. And I'm offering these devotions as my little bit of hope, playing my role in being a part of the solution. These devotions are offered as a balm for the heart, the mind, the spirit and the soul. And the title for today's service is Time to Inhabit Space. So I invite us just to still ourselves together now in silence. Let's invite a loving presence to be here amongst us and to awaken from deep, deep within us, within all of us. I have lit the flame of freedom in this cup of belonging, inclusion, and love. We join together in our physical separation, united in our devotion to life and to love. Help us to see the beauty of life that surrounds us, to see the rebirth of life in nature, this natural celebration of the renewal of life that is spring. May we know the deep connections that sustain us, the roots that hold us so close and nurture us beneath the surface of our lives. May we remember that when we cannot physically hold one another close, we are held close in our roots, beneath us, beneath the surface, beneath our skin. May we remember that we are deeply connected in heart, mind, spirit and soul. And may this deep connection open us to the growth that is in this day. May we be open to life this day. May we celebrate the natural beauty all around us. May we be open to one another this day. Open to love this day. Open to what might yet be. May we live open lives. May we be open. Amen. So I'm going to begin with 2 or 3 little wisdom tales from my favourite Nasruddin, that holiest of holy fools. So this is the first one on efficiency. Efficiency. So Nasruddin was working for an employer who complained to him one day. "You're doing everything too slowly," he said. "There is no reason for you to go to the bazaar 3 separate times to buy material. You surely can do it all at once." Now, several days later, the employer said to Nasruddin, "I am sick, go and get the doctor." So Nasruddin went off and immediately came back with the doctor and 2 other people. This caused his boss to ask, "Who are the other 2 people that you've brought?" To which Nasruddin explained, "Well, I thought in order to save myself from making extra trips, I brought the doctor, but I also brought the imam in case we need to pray for your recovery, and of course the undertaker in case you die." Here's a tale about Nasruddin's vacation, his holiday. Nasruddin was working for Nike, or Nike as people like to say. But one week he just didn't show up for his job. When he came back, his boss asked him, where were you during the last week? To which Nasruddin said, "Well, I was just doing as I was instructed." "What?" the boss replied. "Well," Nasruddin explained, "I was going to ask you for a vacation last week, but then I remembered that our company has a motto, and what that motto was, just do it." "So?" said the boss. "So I just did it," said Nasruddin. And here's Nasruddin's hurried prayer. Nasruddin was in a rush one day and quickly went to the mosque for an evening prayer session. The religious leader saw his rushed prayer and angrily said to him, "This is not right. You are offering such hurried prayers. Start over again." So Nasruddin complied. He did as he was told, and when he was finished, the religious leader said to him, "Now, Don't you think that God appreciated this second round of prayers more than the hurried ones that you did? To which Nasruddin replied, no, not really. Although the first ones were hurried, they were done for God. But the ones that you made me do, they were done for you. So some wisdom in there somewhere. You may have to dig for it, but there is some wisdom there. And here's some perhaps easier to access wisdom from the late great Maya Angelou, taken from Wouldn't Take Nothing for My Journey Now. Maya Angelou. Every person needs to take one day away, a day in which one consciously separates the past from the future. Jobs, lovers, family, employers and friends can exist one day without any of us. And if our egos permit us to confess, they could exist eternally in our absence. Scary thought that, isn't it? Each person deserves a day away in which no problems are confronted, no solutions searched for. Each of us needs to withdraw from the cares which will not withdraw from us. We need hours of aimless wanderings or spates of time sitting on park benches, observing the mysterious worlds of ants and the canopy of treetops. If we step away for a time, we are not, as many may think and some will accuse, being irresponsible, but rather we are preparing ourselves to more ably perform our duties and discharge our obligations. When I return home, I am always surprised to find some questions I sought to evade had been answered, and some entanglements I had hoped to flee had become unravelled in my absence. A day away acts as a spring tonic. It can dispel rancour, transform indecision, and renew the spirit. So some wisdom there from Maya Angelou, to go along with the wisdom from Mullah Nasruddin. Which did you prefer? Which spoke to your spirit, to your heart, to you? And here are some thoughts of mine. Nice wisdom from Maya Angelou, but at the moment, none of us can get away. Not physically away, anyway. We've been asked to stay at home, to stay in. We are probably finding different ways to exist, I would guess. Many of us are learning to slow down, do things we would not normally do as well. And yet some of us are busier than ever. Those who work in the health sector or in supply our basic needs such as food, they're great examples of people who are busier, working harder than ever. I've never been busier myself, actually. And my new wife, who is a funeral celebrant, is sadly needed more and in new ways at this time. We were lucky. We were the last set of couples who were able to marry in this country before social distancing came in. Nobody else can get married at the moment. I saw some pictures of the weekend of people having celebrating some kind of non-marriage, if you like, not having the ceremony, but celebrating by social distancing at home and round and about over the weekend. And I felt for them. People keep asking me how married life is going. And my answer to that is, well, it's not what I expected. But then this is not what any of us expected, is it? This time of life is not what anyone expected it to be. Now, while Sue and myself are very busy, we're also taking time to relax and not work. We've got a date night tonight to watch a film. I spent this last Sunday, Easter Sunday, not working. I had created material beforehand and shared it online and through the post beforehand so that everybody would receive it for Easter Sunday. Some online, some videos, some on post, some email. But on Easter Sunday itself, I spent the whole of Easter Sunday enjoying a Sabbath day. Do you know what I did? Well, I spent the whole day re-watching the whole of the Cricket World Cup final from last Sunday. It was repeated from first ball to last on Sky Sports. It was an utter delight, by the way. And you know what? It was a tie again, and it went down to the super over, which also was a tie again, but England won again. Even though it was another tie, some strange anomaly of the rules, because they'd hit more boundaries apparently, gave them a victory. They won again, same result. Funny that, isn't it? It was a delightful day as I ate and watched something I love. I took a whole day off. Had a lovely Easter egg too, which is not like me these days. And I enjoyed every morsel of it. A beautiful Sabbath day on Easter Sunday. Not what I was expecting to do. I did not leave the house once. We all need a time for rest. It is vital to living an active life, actually. We all need time to receive love too. I can at times run near to empty and often get told off for it, actually. Even in this time of social distancing, my life is incredibly busy as I try and find ways to serve those in need of spiritual nourishment and spiritual support. But like everybody, I need Sabbath time. No one can just keep going on and on. Our bodies just won't allow it. When I think about my body not allowing it, I'm taken back to a time some 13 years ago when I was coming to terms with an intense and heartbreaking grief. It was around the time of the first anniversary of Ethan's death when my body just gave in. It just stopped. Right there in the middle of Albert Square in Manchester. I had to stop completely. I could not move. I sat down on a bench for over an hour and just wept. Following that was the last bout of serious depression I've experienced in my life. Thank God for that. I was utterly exhausted at the time and my body just refused to move anymore. My body forced me to fully experience the time I found myself in. It forced me to stop trying to run from the space that was my grief. Thank God I obeyed it. Not that I could have not, really. Because in that time of space and surrender, during that time, I believe my journey into ministry, my vocation, grew. You cannot run from time and space, well, not forever anyway. Everyone needs a time of rest, a time to fill themselves with love, a time to take in life in order to give back to life. We need to take in order to give back at times. It seems obvious why a time of rest is so enshrined in the great religious traditions. We cannot live without rest, for without rest we will not appreciate the lives that we have. We will not feel the love present, and we will live as if like zombies. Those lumbering robots that people talk about, that's how we'll live. We'll live slow, meaningless, living deaths, because we won't be alive. In Exodus 31 it is said that if a person works on the day of rest, they should be put to death. Sounds a bit extreme, that, doesn't it? The Old Testament is like that. Bit strong, beyond reason. I know it sounds ridiculous. But if you think about it, if you don't read those words literally, and instead read them as mythos, metaphorically perhaps, if you think about it, if we live without a time of rest, are we not living as if we were dead? If we live like that, life quickly becomes meaningless, we feel nothing. We are like zombies, the walking dead. It's a living hell. It's a fate worse than death, if you think about it, to be the walking dead, unfeeling, not being here at all, but seemingly functioning like zombies. Now, according to Jewish tradition, the seventh day is a time for rest and refreshment. For even God rested on the seventh day and was refreshed. The time of rest is needed in order to love whatever it is that we create with our lives. For without a time of rest, we will not see what we create as good. We will not love those we share our lives with and the world in which we live and breathe and share this very fragile human being. Such time, Sabbath time, allows us to live in the space in which we inhabit. I'm going to quote another favourite. I quote him a lot really, the Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. He claimed that the Sabbath as a day of rest is not for the purpose of recovering one's own strength and becoming fit for the forthcoming labour. The Sabbath is a day for the sake of life. The Sabbath is a day for the sake of life. If you don't take that time, you do not live. You are the walking dead. You feel nothing. You are not alive. You do not feel the aliveness of things. During the early years of the 20th century, Sandor Ferenczi, a disciple of Freud, Sigmund Freud, discovered a phenomenon that he described as Sunday Neurosis. Sunday Neurosis. He noticed that seemingly normal, healthy, successful people would experience extreme mental and physical distress on the Sabbath. Ferenczi believed that these people, having been deprived of their normal busy routine by Sunday, begin to panic, as they feared that they would lose their usual self-censoring mechanisms and therefore their wild impulses would reign. They felt out of control and it terrified them. Therefore, this extreme pain and/or mental anguish developed as a way of staving off the anxiety of being still, of feeling life. I think there's wisdom in Ferenczi's discoveries. I suspect that the fear of stopping is somehow rooted in the fear of our own humanity, the fear of our animal heart, the fear of the soul, the fear of the spirit, and this is why so many of us live in our heads and become slave to the rules of life. And I'm not just talking about the religiously inclined here. I suspect actually it's more a symptom of the secular modern age and the worship of the mind. It's a symptom of functionality. It's a symptom of not valuing time and space. Time is sacred, actually. The time like everything is sacred. Time is the most sacred, precious thing we have. Life isn't just about what we do, but the spirit in which we do what we do. Yes, you can purchase a lifestyle, but you can't buy a life. Nobody can. Here's a bit more Heschel from Sabbath. There is a realm of time where the goal is not to have but to be, not to own but to give, not to control but to share, not to subdue but to be in accord. Life goes wrong when the control of space, the acquisition of things of space, becomes our sole concern. What I've discovered is that Sabbath actually is a celebration of life, of love, of our part in this thing that is creation. It's a time of liberation, a time of appreciation. Jesus recognised this in the gospel accounts. He was critical of the way his own tradition was practised and its slavishness to the rules, not because he was opposed to a time of rest, of spiritual sustenance. Far from it, he was really in favour of it. No, he was critical because he witnessed that by slavishly following the rules, the pious had lost the spirit and the love at the core of the tradition. Sabbath, you see, is about love, the love of life, for it is Sabbath time that allows humanity to bring the spirit of love alive in life. Again, as Heschel wrote in the 20th century, the Jewish contribution to the idea of love is the conception of love of the Sabbath, the love of a day, of the spirit in form of time. The Jewish contribution to the idea of love is in the conception of love of the Sabbath, the love of a day, of spirit in the form of time. How precious is time. In Mark's Gospel, in the 2nd chapter, Jesus remarks, "The Sabbath was made for humankind, and not humankind for the Sabbath." him and Heschel understood something powerfully here. This is the love, actually, I think, that's at the core of that teaching, of Jesus' teaching. The love of God, the love of life, the love of other, the love of self, the love of being alive, the love of the preciousness of life, of time itself. And I believe that this same spirit is at the core of the great spiritual teachings. It's just we lose sight of it at times. The spiritual life is as much about the love of time as it's about the love of space and place. It's an appreciation of the sacredness of every single moment of time of our lives. It's the love that allows the space in which we find ourselves to come alive. But we need to appreciate time to do that. And I think that's our religious task, to bring alive the space in which we find ourselves. And that's the point of Sabbath time. It allows us to bring alive the space in which we find ourselves. Because if we're non-stop, we're never going to feel anything. We need Sabbath time, perhaps in this time when we are not able to do the things that we would like to do, that we normally do, when we are forced to slow down and stay home. Unless we have to, of course. In this time we can learn to live in the space in which we find ourselves. A lesson we're being taught again. We need to pause and settle and take in life more fully, to feel our feet firmly on the ground in which we find ourselves. We need to allow our senses to awaken to all that is. We need to feel the love in our own bellies and the love of those we share our lives with, those physically close at hand and those we're connected through in heart, mind, spirit and soul. If unfortunately physically disconnected at this time. We need to appreciate the preciousness of this moment and the sacredness of all life. We need to learn to be people of time and not only people of place. And how do we do that? By embracing Sabbath time. I learned that again on Easter Sunday. Amen. I'm going to bring our devotions towards the end now with a beautiful blessing by John O'Donoghue before offering some final words of blessing of my own. So this is a blessing for one who is exhausted by John O'Donoghue. When the rhythm of the heart becomes hectic, time takes on the strain until it breaks. Then all the unattended stress falls in on the mind like an endless increasing weight. The light in the mind becomes dim. Things you could take in your stride before now become laboursome events of will. Weariness invades your spirit. Gravity begins falling inside you, dragging down every bone. The tide you never valued has gone out, and you are marooned on unsure ground. Something within you has closed down, and you cannot push yourself back to life. You have been forced to enter empty time. The desire that drove you has relinquished. There is nothing else to do now but rest and patiently learn to receive the self that you have forsaken for the race of days. At first, your thinking will darken and sadness take over like listless weather. The flow of unwept tears will frighten you. You have travelled too fast over false ground. Now your soul has come to take you back. Take refuge in your senses. Open up to all the small miracles you rush through. Become inclined to watch the way of rain when it falls slow and free. Imitate the habit of twilight, taking time to open the well of colour that fostered the brightness of day. Draw alongside the silence of stone until its calmness can claim you. Be excessively gentle with yourself. Stay clear of those vexed in spirit. Learn to linger around someone of ease who feels they have all the time in the world. Gradually, you will return to yourself, having learned a new respect for your heart and the joy that dwells far within slow time. Some wisdom there from John O'Donoghue for one who is exhausted. And I'm going to end with some final words of blessing by Chief Dan George. You know, we all need to bless more. We all can bless more. We can all bless. We can bless by a simple, beautiful humanity, but we need to take time to do so. We can bless in the way we live and breathe and share our being. So I invite you to join with me for this final blessing. The beauty of the trees, the softness of the air, the fragrance of the grass speaks to me. The summit of the mountain, the thunder of the sky, the rhythm of the sea speaks to me. The faintness of the stars, the freshness of the morning, the dew drop on the flower speaks to me. The strength of the fire, the taste of the salmon, the trail of the sun, and the life that never goes away. They speak to me, and my heart soars, and my heart soars, and my heart soars. May the love of God go with us all, in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, in all that we do. Amen.